Hello, history fans. Hello, History Nation. Welcome back to the History Shelf. My name is Peg, here to take you on a whirlwind tour of the latest history releases from a variety of different publishers. Today, we are going back to a tried and true favorite, University Press, that I am honored enough to partner with, and definitely have shown their books on this channel before, and that is the University of Nebraska Press, with imprints such as Potomac Books, Bison Books. I think those are the two main ones, but they've had a series of new releases over 2023, and these are out now. I believe I will let you know if something comes across that isn't out yet, but these should all be out right now. But we have a wide variety of history, and just to show you the quality of the scholarship coming out of university presses, I like to do spotlights on different university presses, and so I've already done one for Nebraska Press, but I am more than happy to do another and to get some of these books on your radar. Maybe you can request them through your local library, uh, bookstore, however you read. I'm not sure of the status on ebooks as far as these go, but I'm sure that several will have ebook options. Anyway, we've got a stack. Let's see if we can work through it. We've got about 12 books here. So without further ado, let's dive right in. We're going to go to the Civil War, which is one of my favorite topics. Areas of history to study. I love my Civil War stuff, and this one is a collection of letters, which I find always endearing. It really humanizes the conflict and the people in it. Kind of brings us closer to the past, I feel, when you can actually read the words of the people who are experiencing it. Soldiers at the front, the wives, mothers, parents of folks back home. It's very moving. And what we have here is a book. This is Nebraska Press imprint. This is called Toward a More Perfect Union: The Civil War Letters of Frederick and Elizabeth Lockley, edited by Charles E. Rankin. As you can see, it's a very nice sized book here. Let's see. Toward a More Perfect Union is an extraordinary book of husband and wife letters written during the Civil War, selected from the Frederick E. Lockley collection at the Huntington Library in San Marino, California. Appearing here are 162 letters exchanged between Frederick Lockley and his wife Elizabeth, chosen from among the 405 letters preserved in the collection. That's a lot. The survival of such two-way exchanges is rare. A few soldiers in the field had the opportunity to save letters from home, and that's true. I've never even thought about that. You're carrying just a certain amount of weight, and sometimes you have these campaigns where people are just throwing off their rucksacks because they're figuring, look, either we come back and get it or someone else will pick it up, but it's too heavy. So the fact that they do have a two-way exchange saved is pretty amazing. The Lockleys' selected letters narrate a chronological 3-year story from 1862 to 65. When Frederick enlisted at 37, he and Elizabeth, that's an older recruit there, 37, God bless him. He and Elizabeth promised each other they would write twice a week, and for the most part they did. These are not average letters. A published author, Frederick was remarkably insightful and articulate, and Elizabeth was literate and expressive as well. Although primarily a love story, who doesn't love a love story? Set during the Civil War, Toward a More Perfect Union also offers ample military material, some not well represented elsewhere in Civil War literature. Frederick wrote of life in garrison duty in defense of Washington, manning the siege lines at Petersburg, and guarding Union parolees and Confederate prisoners of war. But his letters also show strong ties to home and his need for those ties in order to maintain his own mental and emotional equilibrium in the face of the horrors of war. Elizabeth's letters reflect an urban setting and the perspective of a young, recently married woman who spent much of her time parenting three young children from Frederick's first marriage. Well, God bless her. In fact, children and parenting assume a theme in Fred and Lizzie's correspondence, almost as constant and consequential as the war itself. Uh, doesn't that sound fantastic? Let's see if we can find a picture or something. I don't know if we have pictures of these two fine people. Oh, I'm not finding it. But, just what a treat. I love collections of letters. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I just love them. So that book came out earlier in the summer. So, it is available. All right. Now, what do we got? Yes. Okay. Oops. Sorry. My microphone. I just don't even know where to go. Should I go? Oh, well, you know what? Let's mention this book again, even though I have mentioned it before on the channel. I wrote a review for it, and I was even contacted by the author who was very, he liked my review. And, but I just want to sing this book's praises again. I highly recommend Civil War readers out there check this one out. 12 Days, How the Union Nearly Lost Washington in the First Days of the Civil War by Tony Silber. This is a Potomac Books imprint. It's written kind of like just almost like a thriller novel, but it's just so precisely researched. He is down to Tony Silber kind of breaks down these movements of troops trying to get to Washington in between Lincoln's inauguration and wait a minute, between his arrival. Hey, you know what? I'm going to read this to you anyway. So what am I saying here? Anyway, I'll tell you how well it's written after I give you a brief description here. In the popular literature and scholarship of the Civil War, the days immediately after the surrender at Fort Sumter are overshadowed by the great battles and seismic changes in American life that followed. The 12 days that began with the federal evacuation of the fort, here we go, and ended with the arrival of the New York 7th Militia Regiment in Washington were critically important. The nation's capital never again came so close to being captured by the Confederates. Tony Silber's riveting account starts on April 14th, 1861, with President Lincoln's call for 75,000 militia troops. Washington, a southern slaveholding city, was the focal point. Both sides expected the first clash to occur there. The capital was barely defended by about 2,000 local militia troops of dubious training and loyalty. In Charleston, less than 2 days away by train, the Confederates had an organized army that was much larger and ready to fight. So that's something we forget about. Hindsight is 2020, right? We just think all of these events were just made to unfold this way. But people living in that time, obviously, just like with us, with current events now, we don't know what tomorrow holds. And Silber really brings to life those 12 days between the evacuation of Fort Sumter and then when the 7th Militia finally got there. And it was 12 tense days, and he really brings to life just how reading this, it's like Lincoln was so close to a complete nervous breakdown. I mean, just kept looking out the window, why won't they come? And I got some insights into the Confederate side and why didn't they attack. And a lot of it points back to Jefferson Davis. He was kind of holding back on that. And some of the folks on the Confederate side were urging him to attack, but he just didn't want to do it. So a lot of keen original analysis in this book I really enjoyed, and again written by like minute to minute, hour to hour. Where were all of these different regiments? Oh, the scene of the Baltimore troops. Let me get to that. This was amazing. That one was crazy. Let's read this here. Maryland's eastern sections were already reeling in violent insurrection, and within days Virginia would secede. For half of the 12 days after Fort Sumter, Washington was severed from the north, the telegraph lines cut, and the rail line impassable, sabotaged by secessionist police and militia members. There was no cavalry coming. The United States had a tiny standing army at the time, most of it scattered west of the Mississippi. The federal government's only defense would be state militias. But in state after state, the militia system was in tatters. Um, yes. So this is just an epic book. I'm trying to remember the name of the unit that went through Baltimore, and they were basically running for their lives, you know. So it's kind of scary, but it's well illustrated. Lots of photographs of the key players. Um, yes, this was it here. Nick Biddle, this gentleman here. Hello, right here. Nick Biddle. He was a 65-year-old escaped enslaved man who marched with a Pennsylvania militia company and was badly wounded by a racist insurrectionist mob in Baltimore. Yeah, Baltimore was just nuts back then. So, um, again, I mentioned this book months ago, but I love it. This is going on my shelf. This is a book I intend to keep. It is a keeper. It's fantastic new original scholarship on a time that is often underlooked, as the author indicates in his introduction and elsewhere. So, 12 Days by Potomac Books, written by Tony Silber, but published by Potomac Books, which is an imprint of University of Nebraska Press. All right, now we're moving on to, I'm trying to see if I have other things here I should group together. Let's just kind of stick in the time frame, sort of. This is a beautiful book with a naked dust jacket. So it's just hardcover with artwork on the hardcover. It's beautiful. This is a Nebraska release. Agriculture, sorry, I can't speak. Agriculture in the Midwest, 1815 to 1900 by R. Douglas Hurt. Now look at this book. Fantastic. Um, this book came out in the summer, I believe, only a couple months ago. Yes. So, here we go. After the War of 1812 and the removal of the region's indigenous peoples, the American Midwest became a paradoxical land for settlers. Even as many settlers found that the region provided the bountiful life of their dreams, others found disappointment, even failure, and still others suffered social and racial prejudice. In this broad and authoritative survey of Midwestern agriculture from the War of 1812 to the turn of the 20th century, R. Douglas Hurt contends that this region proved to be the country's garden spot and the nation's heart of agricultural production. During these 85 years, the region transformed from a sparsely settled area to the home of large industrial and commercial cities, including Chicago, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and my hometown, Detroit. All right. Yeah, and we won. We won last week. And we're playing again Thursday night. Let's go Lions. Still, it remained primarily an agricultural region that promised a better life for many of the people who acquired land, raised crops, and livestock, provided for their families, adopted new technologies, and sought political reform to benefit their economic interests. Focusing on the history of Midwestern agriculture during wartime, utopian isolation, and colonization, as well as political unrest, Hurt contextualizes myriad facets of the region's past to show how agricultural life developed for Midwestern farmers, and to reflect on what that meant for the region and the nation. So that's pretty interesting. I don't know a lot about like the agricultural history of the country, but it kind of feeds into my whoa, focus, focus. Wow, my my camera got really confused there for a minute. But it kind of feeds into my interest in like economic growth, industrial growth of the country. Um, Broken down into really simple chapters like seekers, graziers, utopians, warriors, colonizers. I'm sorry, I don't mean to confuse you. Camera doesn't know how to focus right now. So that is Agriculture in the Midwest, 1815 to 1900 by R. Douglas Hurt. Next book. Another book by Potomac Books. This one looks really, really interesting. This is called The Disappeared Remnants of a Dirty War by Sam Ferguson. There will be a glare on that. So, what is this book about, you may ask? In July. Available now. Okay, we'll just have to have the glare there. The Disappeared tells the extraordinary saga of Argentina's attempt to right the wrongs of an unspeakably dark past. Using a recent human rights trial as his lens, Sam Ferguson addresses two central questions of our age. How is mass atrocity possible, and what should be done in its wake? Oh, wow. From 1976 to 1983, thousands of people were the victims of state terrorism during Argentina's so-called Dirty War. Ferguson recounts a 22-month trial of the most notorious perpetrators of this atrocity, who ran a secret prison from the Naval Mechanics School in Buenos Aires. The Navy executed as many as 5,000 political subversives, most of whom were sedated and thrown alive, oh my God, out of airplanes into the South Atlantic. I'm sorry, wow, I don't recall this from reading the description the first time, but oh my Lord. They were, well, they were sedated. I would hope you would at least make them unconscious. That is horrible. That is appalling and sedated and thrown alive out of airplanes into the South Atlantic. As if they were garbage. It's just, there's so much evil in this world. The victims of these secret death flights and others who went missing during the regime are known as Los Desaparecidos. Los Desaparecidos, the disappeared. Ferguson explores Argentina's novel response to mass atrocity, the country's remarkable and controversial decisions in 2003 to repeal a series of amnesty laws passed in the 80s and to prosecute anew the perpetrators of the Dirty War a generation after the collapse of the country's last dictatorship. As of 2022, more than 1,000 aging military officers have been indicted for their involvement in the Dirty War. Good. Yeah, and hundreds of trials have commenced in the country's civilian courts. Among the many facets of the book, oh, this is interesting. Get ready for this little item here. Ferguson takes an in-depth look at allegations that Father, let me know if you recognize this name, looks at allegations that Father Jorge Mario Bergoglio, I'll count to three until I'm going to say who that person is. Pope Francis was involved in the disappearance of two Jesuit priests under his supervision in 1976. Now, it says he's going to look at those allegations. I'm not saying that he's supporting those, but it says here, Bergoglio was called to testify in a closed chamber session. Ferguson reviewed those secret proceedings and uses them as a springboard to explore the Argentine Catholic Church and its broader role in the Dirty War. Okay, this sounds riveting, and it might have some new information about Pope Francis, maybe. I don't know. Wow. So, again, from Potomac Books, The Disappeared Remnants of a Dirty War by Sam Ferguson. Look this up. You can find it on any Amazon, any book outlet. You can also go to the university website. I will link their stuff below. Keep an eye out because sometimes, university presses, they have big sales, and you might be able to pick up a copy of this one. Right now it's hardcover price, about $40, but you never know. Okay, the next book we got here. This one is very richly richly illustrated with photographs. It's more good, juicy spy stuff. And this is also from Potomac Books. We're going to try this side. Spy Ships. 100 Years of Intelligence Collection by Ships and Submarines by Norman Polmar and Lee J. Mathers. There we go. Nice, beautiful book. Almost from the first days of seafaring, Men have used ships for spying and intelligence collection. Since early in the 20th century, with the technological advancements of radio and radar, the U.S. Navy and other government agencies and many other navies have used increasingly specialized ships and submarines to ferret out the secrets of other nations. The US and the Soviet Union slash Russia have been the leaders in those efforts, especially during the 45 years of the Cold War. But as Norman Polmar and Lee J. Mathers reveal, so has China, which has become a major maritime power in the 21st century, with special interests in the South China Sea and with increasing hostility towards the United States. Through extensive, meticulous research and through the lens of such notorious spy ship events as the Israeli attack on the USS Liberty, not many people know about that or remember it, the North Korean capture of the USS Pueblo, not many people know about that or remember it, and the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency's success in clandestinely salvaging part of a Soviet submarine with the Hughes Glomar Explorer. And that's one I do not know about. Spy ships is a fascinating and valuable resource for understanding maritime intelligence collection and what we have learned from it. As you can just see from the sides of the book, you can't see in this light, but so many pictures in this book. Not that I require that, but um, sorry. I'm trying to give you guys a better idea of what the books look like. Lots of stuff, lots of charts. Uh, wow, that is detailed. Crazy. Ooh, I just love in the photographs. Uh, Fantastic. Um, so, brand new book out, Spy Ships from Potomac Books. Check that out. All right, we're gonna move on to. Oh, this one looks great. I should have grouped this one with the book on what was it, agriculture in the Midwest. This one takes a very unique lens on farming and farmers, and it's a big thick book, and it's from Bison Books, an imprint of the University of Nebraska Press. This came out August 1st, so this is only like a month old. Nice beefy work. Looking forward to reading this. I don't think I've seen many books like this. This is The First Migrants: How Black Homesteaders' Quest for Land and Freedom Heralded America's Great Migration, by Richard Edwards and Jacob K. Freefeld, prefaced by Angela Bates. Angela Bates? Sorry. I always get that name confused with the actress Angela Davis, right? Right. It's Angela Davis did not write the uh, the preface, but Angela Bates did. But look at this nice big thick book from Bison Books. Let's get into this. I'm going to hold this up so you guys can see. First Migrants. The First Migrants recounts the largely unknown story of Black people who migrated from the South to the Great Plains between 1877 and 1920 in search of land and freedom. They exercised their rights under the Homestead Act to gain title to 650,000 acres, settling in all of the Great Plains states. Some created Black homesteader communities, such as Nicodemus, Kansas, and DeWitt, Nebraska, while others, including George Washington Carver and Oscar Michaud, homesteaded alone. All sought a place where they could rise by their own talents and toil, unencumbered by Black codes, repression, and violence. In the words of one Nicodemus descendant, they found a place they could experience real freedom, though in a racist society that freedom could never be complete. Their quest foreshadowed the epic movement of Black people out of the South, known as the Great Migration. In this first account of the full scope of Black homesteading in the Great Plains, Richard Edwards and Jacob K. Freefeld weave together two distinct strands: the narrative histories of the 6 most important Black homesteader communities and the several themes that characterize homesteaders' shared experiences. Using homestead records, diaries, and letters, interviews with homesteaders' descendants, and other sources, Edwards and Freefeld illuminates the homesteaders' fierce determination to find freedom and their greatest achievements and struggles for full. So that's an important new piece of work, new history on Black homesteading communities, and we have a nice map that kind of shows the six communities he selected. DeWitt, Nebraska; Nicodemus, Kansas; Deerfield, Colorado. That's up towards the north of us there. Almost on a par of Fort Collins, maybe a little bit to the east. It's very close to Fort Collins, it looks like. New Mexico is, oh, Blackdom. They have a community called Blackdom. Okay, Blackdom, New Mexico. And Wyoming was Empire, Wyoming, and then Sully County, South Dakota. So those are the six areas or towns that he's going to focus on. It's a very handsomely done book. Plenty of photographs, period photographs. We even have some color ones that show you the well, that's a first district schoolhouse in Nicodemus. How these locations look today. Oh, these are just what a wonderful book, you guys. I've never seen any of these pictures before. And look at these homesteaders just out there. They are, wow. This is our history, and we all need to see these pictures and to know just that our history, and the farming ideals and just the hoping for a better future applies to everybody. And yeah, beautiful book. And then it's just the type is just the right size. It's not too small. It's not too dense. This looks like a very reader friendly. It's academic work, but also just something to be enjoyed and savored. So, so props to the University of Nebraska Press for publishing the first Migrants: How Black Homesteaders' Quest for Land and Freedom Heralded America's Great Migration. Put out by Bison Books. That is out now. So yes, please do check that out. We got more books, and it's only 27 minutes in. Let's keep rocking. We've got another beautiful naked hardcover book here. This is called Mediating Violence from Africa: Francophone Literature, Film, and Testimony After the Cold War by George S. McLeod. McLeod? McLeod. McLeod. Yeah, I think it's McLeod. So this is kind of a different title. What can I tell you about this one? I think I wanted to look at it because I am interested in, just how French literature, philosophy kind of imprinted a bit for good and ill in different places overseas, especially, say, in, the colonies in Africa. But let me read this to you then. Mediating Violence from Africa explores how African and non-African Francophone authors, filmmakers, editors, and scholars have packaged, interpreted, and filmed the violent histories of post-Cold War Francophone Africa. This violence, much of which unfolded in front of Western television cameras, included the use of child soldiers, the rise of Islamist terrorism in West Africa, and the horrific genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Through close readings of fictionalized child soldier narratives, cinematic representations of Islamist militants, genocide survivor testimony, and Western scholarship, George S. McLeod analyzes the ways Francophone African authors and filmmakers, as well as their editors and scholarly critics, negotiate the aesthetic, political, cultural, and ethical implications of making these traumatic stories visible. McLeod argues for the need to periodize these productions within a post-Cold War framework to emphasize how shifts in post-1989 political discourse are echoed, contested, or subverted by contemporary Francophone authors, filmmakers, and Western scholars. This is definitely an academic work, but we'll see how it reads. The questions raised in this book are of vital importance today. How the world engages with and responds to stories of recent violence and loss from Africa has profound implications for the affected communities and individuals. More broadly, in an era in which stories and images of violence, from terror attacks to school shootings to police brutality, are disseminated almost instantly and with minimal context, these theoretical questions have implications for debates surrounding the ethics of representing trauma, the politicization of memory, and Africa's place in a global, as opposed to a post-colonial or Euro-African economic and political landscape. All right. And George MacLeod is an associate professor of French at St. Mary's College of Maryland. Yes, this is definitely going to be more of a heady piece of writing. All right. But I'm intrigued, and the text itself is not very long. We're looking about 143 pages. And this, again, is put out, this is by Nebraska Press, I should say. If you want to check that one out. Just take a sip of my tea. Hey, I just want to say real quick, boy, aren't I glad that my team is the Detroit Lions and not the Denver Broncos, right? Because everyone's talking about that, and that was brutal. Again, doesn't bother me any really, because my team's 2-1. Woo! All right, sorry, I just had to get that in there. When the Detroit Lions, hey, you know what? We've been on the receiving end, but nothing as bad as 70-20. I can tell you that much. The Detroit Lions have never lost by that much. No one has. And it could have been more, but they did a very nice thing by not kicking that field goal. Miami did. Oh, whatever. A little football talk. We're taking a little break here. Okay. Next book we have is Truman and the Bomb: The Untold Story by D.M. Giangreco. This is Potomac Books again. This book came out in July. Let's see. Many myths have grown up around President Harry S. Truman's decision to use nuclear weapons against Imperial Japan. In destroying these myths, Truman and the Bomb will discomfort both Truman's critics and his supporters. How does one book manage to do that? And force historians to re-examine what they think they know about the end of the Pacific War. So let's get into a couple of these myths and facts. I'll throw out a couple for you. Myth: Truman didn't know of the atomic bomb's development before he became president. I've heard that too. Fact: Truman's knowledge of the bomb is revealed in his own carefully worded letters to a Senate colleague and specifically discussed in the correspondence between the Army officers assigned to his Senate investigating committee. Myth: The huge casualty estimates cited by Truman and the Secretary of War, Henry Stimson, were a post-war creation devised to hide their guilt for killing thousands of defenseless civilians. Fact: The flagrantly misrepresented low, and low is in quotes, low numbers are based on narrow slices of highly qualified and limited U.S. Army projections printed in a variety of briefing documents and are not from the actual invasion planning against Japan. Using previously unpublished material, D.M. Giangreco busts these myths and more. An award-winning historian and expert on Truman, Giangreco is perfectly situated to debunk the many deep-rooted falsehoods about the roles played by American, Soviet, and Japanese leaders during the end of the World War II in the Pacific. So this book, a concise yet comprehensive study of Truman's decision to use the atomic bomb, will prove to be a classic for studying presidential politics and influence on atomic warfare and its military and diplomatic components. This is going to be of interest to academics. Making this book particularly valuable for professors and students, as well as for military, diplomatic, and presidential historians and history buffs, you got that? Are extensive primary source materials, including the planned U.S. naval and air operations in support of the Soviet invasion of Manchuria. Outstanding. These documents support Giangreco's arguments while enabling the reader to enter the mindsets of Truman and his administration, as well as the war's key Allied participants. Fantastic. Oh, wow. It's another great work of history that will clear up some things, remind people of the facts, not to buy into the myths. So, Truman and the Bomb, The Untold Story, will go on my shelf alongside my other books on Truman. Well, I actually really like. I kind of really like Truman. You know, from all my different readings of World War II, I read a book recently and reviewed it for Publishers Weekly, The Watchdog, a brand new book out about his Senate investigating committee. Fantastic. I just have a lot of respect for what Truman did. I don't know. And, you know, dropping the bomb, that's a hard decision. You know, I can't say yay or nay. It's just, it was what it was, and it is what it is. And now we're moving on to this slim little volume. So this is like another little work, but it's going to be kind of meaty. For a small book, I'm sure this is going to be very academic. This came out in August. Um, Another beautiful naked hardcover from Nebraska Press. This is When Women Rule the Pacific: Power and Politics in 19th Century Tahiti and Hawaii, by Joy Schultz. And you can see it's very slim. I do love these naked hardcovers though. They're just wonderful. Um, yeah, this book is maybe 148 pages with the index and everything else. So it's a small book, but let's take a look here. Um, we're gonna skip to just another portion of this because I've got 3 more books to go and we're kind of getting up there. And When Women Ruled the Pacific by Joy Schultz highlights 4 Polynesian women rulers who held enormous domestic and foreign power and expertly governed their people amid shifting loyalties, outright betrayals, and the ascendancy of imperial racism. Like their European counterparts, these Polynesian rulers fought arguments of lineage as well as battles for territorial control. Yet the freedom of Polynesian women in general, and women rulers in particular, was unlike anything Europeans and Americans had ever seen. Consequently, white chroniclers of contact had difficulty explaining their encounters, initially praising yet ultimately condemning Polynesian gender systems, resulting in the loss of women's autonomy. The Queen's successes have been lost in the archives as imperial histories and missionary accounts chose to tell different stories. In this first book to consider queenship and women's political sovereignty in the Pacific, Schultz recenters the lives of the women rulers and the history of 19th century international relations. So this should be pretty revelatory. I don't know a lot about. I mean, I know there was a very famous queen in Hawaii. I can't remember her name, but I know that we got some illustrations in here. Um, oh, Hawaiian women often cut their hair short and dyed it with quick lime so that it would appear white. Isn't that interesting? Wow. Um, oh, I love it. Should be a pretty good read, and it won't take long to read this. We'll get some great maps in here as well. So, When Women Ruled the Pacific, I had a book out for about a month and a half now from Nebraska Press. Another, oh, the rest of these books are all beautiful naked hardcovers. What are we gonna do? There's another war that I've always been interested in. I think it's called The Forgotten War, between, you know, it's between the World War II and the Vietnam War, and that's the Korean War. And so we have this new book out. Just came out in August. The Korean War Remembered: Contested Memories of an Unended Conflict by Michael J. Devine. This is put out by Nebraska Press. I can't know if you can see. Beautiful naked hardcover. Michael J. Devine provides a fresh, wide-ranging, and international perspective on the contested memory of the 1950 to 53 conflict that left the Korean Peninsula. Sorry. I'm doing three things at once. I'm trying to make sure I've got this centered. I'm looking at the time, making sure that my recording is still recording. And I'm butchering the words. Okay. Okay, that left the Korean Peninsula divided along a heavily fortified demilitarized zone. His work examines theaters of memory, including literature, popular culture, public education efforts, monuments, and museums in the United States, China, and the two Koreas, to explain how contested memories have evolved over decades and how they continue to shape the domestic and foreign policies of the countries still involved in this unresolved struggle for dominance and legitimacy. The Korean War Remembered also engages with the revisionist school of historians who, influenced by America's long nightmare in Vietnam, consider the Korean War an unwise U.S. interference in a civil war that should have been left to the Koreans to decide for themselves. As a former Peace Corps volunteer to Korea, a two-time senior Fulbright lecturer at Korean universities, and former director of the Harry S. Truman Presidential Library, Devine offers the unique perspective of a scholar with half a century of close ties to Korea and the Korean American community, as well as practical experience in the management of historical institutions. Um, this looks great. And there's the author on the back. Yeah, this book is out right now, and again, I can't sing the praises enough of university presses, and I've been really, really impressed with the quality, just the majorly quality of the last 2 years that I have been receiving books from Nebraska Press. That these are just outstandingly sourced, authors, their credentials, the lengths of the research as far as what we can find in the back of the book, sources, bibliography, endnotes, just a wealth. You could go down a rabbit hole with some of these bibliographies. Amazing. And this just goes on for pages and more pages and more pages. So I love that. I love looking at the bibliography. And of course, we've got some of the standard photos inserts in the middle there. But it looks like it'll be another great addition to studies. Okay, two more books left, guys. Okay, it's rather eclectic. I'm not gonna lie. This one is definitely for a specialist of sorts. But let's go ahead and take a look. See what you guys think. This is also from Nebraska Press. It seems to be that maybe Nebraska Press, they like to do naked hardcovers. But this one is a very, very beautiful cover. Trans-Imperial Anxieties. The Making and Unmaking of Arab Ottomans in Sao Paulo, Brazil, 1850 to 1940. This is by Jose de Najar. See? Just a very sturdy book. They make some really great books at Nebraska Press. Just physically, they're just gorgeous. From the late 1850s, 1940s, multiple colonial projects, often in tension with each other, influenced the formation of local, trans-imperial, and transnational political identities of Arab Ottoman subjects in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Western Hemisphere. Arab Ottoman men, women, and their descendants were generally accepted as whites in a racially stratified Brazilian society. Local anxieties about color and race among white Brazilians and European immigrants, however, soon challenged the white racial status the Brazilian state afforded to Arab Ottoman immigrants. That's interesting. In Trans-Imperial Anxieties, Jose de Najar analyzes how overlapping trans-imperial processes of migration and return, community conflicts, and social adaptation shaped the gendered, racial, and ethnic identity politics surrounding Arab Ottoman subjects and their descendants in Brazil. Upon arrival to the Brazilian Empire, Arab Ottoman subjects were referred to as Turcos, an all-encompassing ethnic identity encased in Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, which forced the immigrants to renegotiate their identities in order to secure the possibility of upward mobility and national belonging. By exploring the relationship between race and gender in negotiating international and inter-imperial politics and law, say that 5 times fast, national identity and religion, trans-imperial anxieties advances understanding of the local and global forces shaping the lives of Arab Ottoman immigrants and their descendants in Brazil, and their reciprocity to state structure. So this is definitely academic work. But don't let the big, slew of words throw you off, because the chapter titles are really enticing. Actually, we've got, oh wow. So first chapter, well, I'll just show you Ottoman Turks and Syrians in the Brazilian Empire, Brazilian Ottoman imperial diplomacy. Chapter 3, Black dangerousness and cannibal peddlers. From subjects to the Sultan. From subjects of the Sultan to white Brazilian citizens. I'm losing the focus. Okay. Yes, so this came out in August. So this is brand new. And now we're moving on to the last book here. This kind of came along around the same time that Oppenheimer came out. And guess what? I still haven't gotten to the dang theater to see it in IMAX, which I still want to do. May have to be one of those things I'll just have to rent when it comes to TV. But I saw this book and I was like, I would love to take a look at this one, because I'm really kind of into that topic right now. This is another book by Nebraska Press, another naked hardcover. This is The First Atomic Bomb, The Trinity Site in New Mexico by Janet Farrell Brody. Okay. Pub sheet down here. My handy dandy pub sheets. How y'all doing today, guys? It's a Monday evening. Getting ready to go open up a bunch of packages. I just picked up the mail, and I've got buku books. I guess I should give you guys an update on the things I'm working on. I am no longer just a book reviewer. I have been offered, and I have accepted a role as an editor. So I'm a reviews editor in historical novels review. I'm really excited about that, but my workload has increased a little bit. But now I get more books shipped to me. The good news is those won't stay with me. I'll be shipping them out to reviewers. But in the meantime, I'm just getting packages like you wouldn't believe, and I got to go downstairs and sort through those. So, the last book, on July 16th, 1945, just weeks before the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki that brought about the surrender of Japan and the end of World War II, the United States unleashed the world's first atomic bomb at the Trinity testing site, located in the remote Tularosa Valley in south-central New Mexico. Immensely more powerful than any weapon the world had seen, the bomb's effects on the surrounding and downwind communities of plants, animals, birds, and humans have lasted decades. I'm not surprised. In The First Atomic Bomb, Janet Farrell Brody explores the history of the Trinity test and those whose contributions have rarely, if ever, been discussed. The men and women who constructed, served, and witnessed the first test, as well as the downwinders. I read that incorrectly. As well as the downwinders who suffered the consequences of the radiation. I've always wondered that. I'm like, we test this thing out in the desert, yeah, but come on. At some point, it's hitting inhabited areas. What happened to those folks? And now this book's going to tell us. Concentrating on these ordinary people, laborers, ranchers, and indigenous peoples who lived in the region and participated in the testing, Brody corrects the lack of coverage in existing scholarship on the essential details and everyday experiences of this globally significant event. The book also covers the environmental preservation of the Trinity test site and compares it with the wide range of atomic sites now preserved independently or as part of the New Manhattan Project National Historical Park. Although the Trinity site became a significant node for testing the new weapons of the post-war United States, it is known today as an officially designated National Historic Landmark. Brody presents a timely, important, and innovative study of an explosion that carries special historical weight in American memory. Wow. Just I'm building it. This book is making noises as I don't want to break the spine, but it's like cracking and cardboard's cracking. Oh, wow. So, just yet another book to kind of maybe buttress my reading on Oppenheimer, which I still want to read that biography. I think it's by Richard J. Nolan. I can't remember now, but it's on my shelf. Um, but yeah, this kind of fits right in with the book, the movie, everything else, and then it kind of answers a question I've always had in the back of my mind when I see those old newsreel footage of the test going off. It's like, what happened to the people who were, yeah, downwind, exactly, or as I like to say, downwinders. So Nebraska Press, guys, and it's out right now. Came out in August. Woo, I'm a little parched. 50 minutes of talking. Okay, guys, I'm going to try to get this loaded up. Oh, I see I've got more work behind me on the chair. I've got two more galleys that came in. Woo! More history. I love what I do. Just wish I had more time, hours in the day, and a little bit more sleep to get all the reading done I want to do. But I do need to read, and there's a really funky piece of hair bouncing. I'm getting a haircut on Thursday, so yay. Yay for me. Well, history fans, History Nation, thanks for joining the History Shelf and me, your host, Peg. I'm glad to have you here. Please let me know what intrigues you about these books. Let me know if you've added anything to your TBR. I'm always happy to know if I've hooked you up with something that, really kind of lights your eyes up. So until next time, BookTube, take care out there and a happy Monday night. Bye.